Lauren Bennett stood frozen at the altar, her ivory gown feeling heavier with each passing second. The church was silent except for the uncomfortable shuffling of 200 guests in the pews behind her. Her hands trembled as she clutched the bouquet of white roses, their thorns pressing into her palms through the silk wrapping. "He's not coming," the wedding planner whispered from beside the altar, her voice tight with professional embarrassment. Brett left a message. "He said he can't do this." The words hit Lauren like cold water. She had stood here for 20 minutes, waiting, hoping, making excuses in her mind. The organist had played the processional 3 times. Her bridesmaids had retreated to the side room, unable to watch any more. Her father had gone to call Brett's phone for the 5th time. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. But it was. Brett Morrison, the man she had dated for 4 years, had abandoned her at the altar on their wedding day. Lauren's vision blurred as tears filled her eyes. She heard gasps and murmurs rippling through the crowd. Someone's phone rang. A woman in the 3rd row started crying loudly. Lauren wanted to run, to disappear, but her legs wouldn't move. The cathedral ceiling seemed to press down on her. Every eye in the room was watching her public humiliation unfold. She had planned this day for 18 months. She had chosen every flower, every song, every detail with care. She had believed in forever. "I need to sit down," Lauren whispered. The wedding planner guided her to the front pew. Lauren's white dress pooled around her like a cloud as she sank onto the wooden bench. She couldn't breathe properly. Her chest felt tight. The church that had seemed so beautiful an hour ago now felt like a prison. "Everyone please," the pastor said from the pulpit, his voice gentle but strained. "Perhaps we should give the family some privacy." But before anyone could move, a small voice cut through the chaos. "Don't cry, pretty lady." Lauren looked up to find a little girl standing in front of her. The child couldn't have been more than 5 years old, with dark curls pulled into 2 ponytails and wearing a bright red dress with white flowers. Her brown eyes were wide and concerned. "Sweetheart, you shouldn't be here," the wedding planner said, reaching for the child. But the little girl dodged her hand and climbed onto the pew next to Lauren. Without hesitation, she wrapped her small arms around Lauren's waist and pressed her face against the ivory fabric. "It's okay," the child said, her voice muffled. "You can be my mommy instead." Lauren's breath caught. The innocent words pierced through her shock and pain. She looked down at the little girl clinging to her and felt something crack open in her chest. Not more pain but something else. Something warm. "Sophie." A man's voice rang out from the back of the church. "Sophie, come here right now." Lauren saw him then. A tall man in a dark blue suit was striding down the center aisle, his face a mixture of embarrassment and concern. He had strong features, dark hair touched with gray at the temples, and moved with the kind of confidence that suggested he was used to being in control. But his daughter wasn't listening. Sophie only hugged Lauren tighter. "I'm so sorry," the man said as he reached them. His voice was deep and genuine. "Sophie, you can't just hug strangers." "She's not a stranger," Sophie said stubbornly, finally looking up at her father. "She's sad. She needs hugs." The man's eyes met Lauren's for the first time, and she saw something shift in his expression. Not pity exactly but understanding. Recognition of pain. "I apologize," he said softly. "We were just passing by and saw the cars outside. Sophie wanted to see the wedding. She doesn't understand." "It's okay," Lauren managed, though her voice cracked. She gently touched Sophie's curly hair. "Thank you, sweetheart. That's the nicest thing anyone has said to me today." "Are you getting married?" Sophie asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. Before Lauren could answer, her father appeared from the side door, his face red and angry. "He's not answering. Brett's phone goes straight to voicemail." "Lauren, honey, I'm going to find him, Ann." "No," Lauren said, finding her voice. She stood up slowly and Sophie reluctantly released her. "Don't. If he doesn't want to be here, then I don't want him either." It was a lie. Her heart was shattered into 1,000 pieces. But she wouldn't beg. She wouldn't chase after someone who had left her standing in front of everyone they knew. The man in the blue suit was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. His daughter tugged on his hand. "Daddy, can she come home with us? She shouldn't be alone." "Sophie, that's not appropriate," he said gently. But Lauren heard something in his voice. A softness that surprised her. She wiped her eyes, trying to compose herself even as her world fell apart. More guests were filing out now, their whispers filling the air like static. Lauren's bridesmaids emerged from the side room, their faces pale and uncertain. Her best friend Rachel rushed over and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Let's get you out of here," Rachel murmured. Lauren nodded numbly. But as she turned to leave, she felt a small hand slip into hers. Sophie had grabbed her fingers and was looking up at her with absolute certainty. "You're very pretty," Sophie said. "Prettier than a princess. That boy was silly to leave you." Despite everything, Lauren felt the corners of her mouth twitch. This child's simple kindness was the only genuine moment in a day that had become a nightmare. "Thank you," Lauren whispered, squeezing the small hand gently before letting go. She followed Rachel down the side aisle, away from the altar where she had stood waiting for a future that would never come. Her dress dragged on the floor, the train catching on the edge of a pew. Everything she had planned was ruined. Everything she had believed was a lie. The man in the blue suit watched her go, his daughter still clutching his hand. Lauren didn't know that this moment, this devastating humiliation, would somehow lead to the most unexpected blessing of her life. She didn't know that the little girl in the red dress would change everything. She didn't know that sometimes the worst day of your life was just the beginning of something better. All she knew was pain. But in a church full of people, one small child had seen her, really seen her, and offered comfort without hesitation. That would matter more than Lauren could possibly imagine. Have you ever had a moment where a stranger's kindness saved you from complete despair? Drop a comment below and hit subscribe to follow Lauren's journey from heartbreak to unexpected hope. 2 days after the wedding that never happened, Lauren sat in her small apartment surrounded by boxes. She had already packed up the things she'd moved into Brett's house the week before, anticipating their married life together. Now those boxes sat in her living room like monuments to her foolishness. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages she didn't want to read. Sympathy, gossip, questions she couldn't answer. She had turned off social media after seeing the first 3 posts about poor Lauren Bennett, and the speculation about why Brett had left. Rachel had stayed with her the first night, but Lauren had sent her home that morning. She needed to be alone. She needed to figure out what came next. The apartment lease ended in 2 weeks. She had given notice because she was supposed to be moving into Brett's house. The house they had picked out together. The house where she had already chosen paint colors for the nursery they'd planned for someday. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Lauren considered ignoring it, but the knocking persisted. "Lauren? It's Rachel. Please open up." With a sigh, Lauren pushed herself off the couch and opened the door. But Rachel wasn't alone. Standing beside her was the man from the church. The one with the daughter who had hugged her. "I know this is strange," Rachel said quickly. "But he came to the bridal shop looking for you. Lauren, this is Ethan Cross." The name sounded vaguely familiar, but Lauren couldn't place it. She was too tired to care. "What do you want?" Ethan Cross looked different in casual clothes. He wore dark jeans and a green button-down shirt, and he seemed less imposing than he had in the church. But his eyes were still intense, still watching her with that same careful attention. "Can I come in?" he asked. "I have something I'd like to discuss with you." Every instinct told Lauren to say no. She didn't know this man. But Rachel was nodding encouragingly, and Lauren was too exhausted to argue. She stepped aside and let them enter. "I'll make tea," Rachel said, heading for the kitchen without being asked. Lauren sat on the couch, suddenly aware of how she looked. She hadn't showered that morning. Her hair was pulled into a messy knot. She wore old sweatpants and a faded college t-shirt. This man, whoever he was seeing her at her absolute worst. "I'm sorry to intrude," Ethan said, sitting in the chair across from her. "I know you don't know me. But Sophie hasn't stopped talking about you since Saturday." Lauren felt a small warmth at the mention of the little girl. "She was very sweet. She thinks you're a princess in need of rescue," Ethan continued. "She asked me if we could find you and bring you home." "That's kind, but I'm fine," Lauren lied. Ethan's expression suggested he didn't believe her. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his posture open and sincere. "I did some research," he admitted. "I hope that doesn't upset you. But I wanted to understand what happened at that church. I learned that you lost not just a wedding but your job too." Lauren flinched. That was true. She had worked at Brett's family's accounting firm. His mother had called yesterday to inform her, coldly, that her position was no longer available. Family loyalty, she'd said. As if Lauren had done something wrong. "Why do you care?" Lauren asked quietly. "Because my daughter hasn't smiled like that in 2 years," Ethan said. "Not since her mother died. And when she hugged you, I saw something light up in her eyes that I thought I'd never see again." Rachel emerged from the kitchen with 3 mugs of tea. She handed them out and then, surprisingly, headed for the door. "I'm going to run to the store," she announced. "I'll be back in an hour." "Rachel," Lauren protested. But her friend was already gone, leaving Lauren alone with this stranger. "I have a proposal," Ethan said after a moment of silence. "And I want you to hear me out before you say no." Lauren wrapped her hands around the warm mug. "Okay. I'm a single father. My wife died suddenly 2 years ago, and Sophie hasn't adjusted well. She's withdrawn. She doesn't connect with her nannies. She cries for her mother at night. I've tried everything. Therapy, different schools, more time off work. Nothing helps." He paused, taking a breath. "But when she saw you, something changed. She felt something. A connection. And I think you could help her." "I'm not a therapist," Lauren said carefully. "I know. But you're someone who showed her kindness in a moment of pain. And she responded to that." Ethan met her eyes directly. "I also know you're about to lose your apartment. That you have no job. That you have nowhere to go." Lauren's cheeks flushed. "Are you offering me a job as a nanny?" "No," Ethan said quietly. "I'm offering you a marriage." The words hung in the air between them. Lauren was certain she had misheard. "What?" "A marriage in name only at first," Ethan clarified quickly. "A legal arrangement that would benefit both of us. You would have security, a home, financial stability. Sophie would have someone who can give her the attention and care she needs. Someone who clearly has a gift for connecting with children." "This is insane," Lauren whispered. "Maybe," Ethan agreed. "But think about it. You're alone. You've lost everything. I'm offering you a fresh start. No expectations, no pressure. Just a chance to rebuild your life while helping my daughter heal. You don't even know me. I know you were kind to a stranger's child when your own heart was breaking," Ethan said softly. "I know you didn't push her away or ignore her. You let her comfort you. That tells me what kind of person you are." Lauren's mind was spinning. This was crazy. People didn't get married like this. Not in real life. But what did she have to lose? Her former life was over. Brett had seen to that. She had no apartment, no job, no prospects. And this man was offering her a lifeline. "What would this marriage look like?" she asked slowly. "You would move into my home. You would spend time with Sophie, be a presence in her life. I would provide everything you need. In return, you give my daughter the maternal figure she's been missing." "And you?" Lauren asked. "What do you get out of this?" Ethan's expression softened. "Peace of mind. The knowledge that Sophie is cared for by someone genuine. And maybe the ability to stop feeling like I'm failing as a father every single day." There was such raw honesty in his voice that Lauren felt something shift inside her. This wasn't some cold business arrangement he was proposing. This was a desperate father trying to save his child. "I need time to think," Lauren said. "Of course," Ethan stood. "But I should tell you, I'm prepared to marry you as soon as this week if you agree. I think speed is important. Sophie needs this. And I suspect you do too." He pulled out a business card and set it on the coffee table. "Call me when you've decided. Whatever you choose, I respect your decision. But Lauren?" He paused at the door. Sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. After he left, Lauren sat holding her cold mug of tea, staring at the business card. Ethan Cross, CEO, Cross Industries. She looked around her small apartment with its packed boxes and uncertain future. Then she thought about a little girl with curly hair and a bright red dress who had hugged her and called her pretty. Lauren picked up her phone. She called the number on the card. "I accept," she said when Ethan answered. "I'll marry you." There was a pause, then his voice, warm and relieved. "Thank you. You won't regret this, Lauren. I promise." She hoped he was right. The civil ceremony took place on Thursday afternoon in a small courthouse office. Lauren wore a simple blue dress that Rachel had helped her pick out. Nothing white, nothing that reminded her of the wedding that had failed. This was different. This was practical. Ethan arrived in a gray suit with Sophie holding his hand. The little girl's face lit up when she saw Lauren. "You came." Sophie rushed forward and hugged Lauren's legs. "Daddy said you were going to live with us." "That's right," Lauren said, kneeling down to Sophie's level. "Is that okay with you?" "Yes." Sophie bounced on her toes. "I asked for a mommy and I got one. That's better than a birthday present." Lauren's throat tightened. This child's simple joy made everything feel more real and more terrifying all at once. The ceremony itself took less than 10 minutes. They signed papers. A judge said words about legal obligations and civil unions. Ethan slipped a simple gold band on Lauren's finger, and she did the same for him. The rings had appeared that morning, delivered to her apartment with a note. Something to make it official. "Choose whatever feels right to you." When the judge pronounced them married, there was no kiss. Instead, Ethan extended his hand and Lauren shook it. Sophie giggled at the gesture. That's silly, the little girl said. Married people are supposed to kiss. Maybe later, sweetheart, Ethan said gently, but his eyes met Lauren's with a question. She looked away. Rachel was the only witness. She hugged Lauren afterward and whispered, "Are you sure about this?" "No," Lauren admitted. "But I'm doing it anyway." They drove to Ethan's home in his black SUV. Sophie chattered the entire way, telling Lauren about her room and her toys and her favorite color, which was apparently purple but sometimes red depending on her mood. When they pulled through the gates, Lauren's breath caught. The estate was enormous. A modern stone and glass structure set on what looked like 5 acres of manicured grounds. A fountain bubbled in the circular driveway. Tall trees lined the property. "This is where you live?" Lauren asked. "This is where we live now," Ethan corrected gently. Inside was even more impressive. High ceilings, open spaces, contemporary furniture in soft grays and whites. Huge windows overlooked a pool and gardens. Everything was pristine and beautiful and utterly intimidating. A woman in her 60s appeared from a hallway. She wore a neat cardigan over a floral dress and had kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. "Mrs. Patricia Torres, this is Lauren," Ethan introduced them. "Lauren, Patricia manages the household. She's been with our family for 15 years. "Welcome," Patricia said warmly, shaking Lauren's hand. "Mr. Cross told me you'd be joining us. I've prepared the guest suite for you." "Guest suite?" Lauren repeated. "Your room," Ethan explained. "I thought you'd prefer your own space. For now." He said the last part carefully and Lauren understood. This marriage might be real on paper but they were still strangers. She felt relief wash over her. "Thank you," she said. Sophie grabbed Lauren's hand. "Can I show you my room first? Please?" "Of course." Sophie's room was a purple wonderland. Purple walls, purple bedspread, purple curtains with silver stars. Toys filled shelves and bins. A reading nook sat by the window with pillows and stuffed animals. It was clearly the room of a loved child. But despite all the brightness, Lauren noticed the photographs on the nightstand. A beautiful woman with Sophie's same eyes and smile appeared in each one. This was Sophie's mother. The woman who had died too young. "That's Mommy," Sophie said, following Lauren's gaze. "She went to heaven. Daddy says she watches over me." "I'm sure she does," Lauren said softly. "She was very beautiful." "She was nice too." Sophie climbed onto her bed and hugged a stuffed rabbit. "But she got sick really fast. One day she was making pancakes and the next day she was in the hospital. Then she didn't come home." Lauren's heart ached for this child who had lost so much. She sat on the edge of the bed. "That must have been very scary." "It was," Sophie admitted. "I cried a lot. Daddy cried too but he tried to hide it. He thought I didn't see but I did." The honesty in Sophie's voice was startling. This little girl had been through real grief, real trauma. And somehow she had decided that Lauren could help fill that void. "I want you to know something," Lauren said carefully. "I'm not trying to replace your mommy. Nobody could do that. But I would like to be your friend if that's okay." Sophie considered this seriously. Then she nodded. "Friends first. But maybe mommy later?" "Maybe," Lauren agreed, not wanting to make promises she couldn't keep. "Come on." Sophie jumped off the bed, her mood shifting instantly the way children's moods do. "I want to show you the whole house." The tour took an hour. Sophie showed Lauren every room, every closet, every favorite hiding spot. The house had 8 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a library, a home theater, a gym, and a massive kitchen that looked like something from a magazine. Lauren's guest suite was on the 2nd floor, 3 doors down from Sophie's room. It was larger than her entire former apartment. A king bed sat against one wall, dressed in soft ivory linens. French doors opened to a private balcony. The bathroom had a soaking tub and a shower with multiple heads. "Mr. Cross had your things brought over," Patricia said, appearing in the doorway. "I took the liberty of unpacking your clothes. I hope that's all right." "You didn't have to do that," Lauren protested. "It's my job, dear. And I'm happy to do it." Patricia smiled. "Dinner will be ready at 6. Mr. Cross tries to eat with Sophie every evening when he's in town." When Patricia left, Lauren sat on the edge of the bed and looked around. This was her life now. This beautiful house, this grieving child, this stranger she had married. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Ethan stood in the hallway looking uncertain. "Is everything all right?" he asked. "Is the room comfortable?" "It's beautiful," Lauren said honestly. "Everything is beautiful." "Good." He shifted his weight. "I wanted to talk to you about expectations. I know this arrangement is unusual. That's an understatement. He smiled slightly. Fair enough. But I want you to feel comfortable here. This is your home now. You can come and go as you please. You have access to everything. Credit cards are in the drawer of the desk. Cars in the garage. Whatever you need. Ethan, Lauren stopped him. Why are you really doing this? The truth. He was quiet for a moment, looking past her toward the window. Because I'm drowning, he said finally. I run a company with 3,000 employees. I make decisions that affect people's lives every day. But I can't help my own daughter. I can't bring her mother back. I can't make her smile. And when I saw you with her in that church, I saw hope for the first time in 2 years. The rawness in his voice made Lauren's chest tighten. I can't fix everything, she warned. I'm not a miracle worker. I'm not asking you to be, Ethan met her eyes. I'm just asking you to be here. To care. To try. Lauren nodded slowly. I can do that. Thank you. He turned to leave, then paused. Lauren? I know you're here because you needed somewhere to go. But I hope that over time, this becomes more than just a refuge. I hope it becomes a home. After he left, Lauren stood on the balcony and looked out over the grounds. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Somewhere in the house, she could hear Sophie singing. This wasn't the life she had planned. But maybe, just maybe, it could be something good. 3 weeks into her new life, Lauren established a routine. She woke early and made breakfast for Sophie, something Patricia had gratefully relinquished. They ate together at the kitchen island, Sophie chattering about her dreams while Lauren listened and asked questions. After breakfast, Lauren walked Sophie to the end of the driveway where the school bus arrived. She waved until the bus disappeared around the corner, then returned to the quiet house. Patricia taught her the household systems. Which grocery store delivered the items Sophie liked. How to work the complicated coffee maker that Ethan used every morning. Where the spare linens were kept. Lauren absorbed it all, wanting to be useful, wanting to prove she belonged here. Ethan left early for work and returned late most evenings. When he was home, he was present. He asked Sophie about school, helped with homework, read bedtime stories. But Lauren noticed the tension in his shoulders, the way he checked his phone constantly, the tiredness in his eyes. One Thursday evening, Lauren was in the kitchen preparing Sophie's favorite dinner, homemade chicken fingers and sweet potato fries, when Ethan came home earlier than usual. He looked surprised to find her cooking. Patricia usually handles dinner, he said. I asked if I could cook tonight, Lauren explained, flipping a chicken piece in the pan. Sophie requested this meal specifically. She did. Ethan set down his briefcase and loosened his tie. She told you that? We talk, Lauren said simply. She tells me things. Something flickered across Ethan's face. Not jealousy exactly, but something close to it. He poured himself a glass of water from the refrigerator and leaned against the counter. What else does she tell you? That she's worried about you, Lauren said honestly. She thinks you work too much. She wants you to come to her school play next month. I have a board meeting that day, Ethan said automatically. Then move it. Lauren turned to face him fully. Ethan, I'm here to help with Sophie. But you need to be here too. Not just physically. Actually here. His jaw tightened. You've been here 3 weeks. You don't know what it's like to run a company. You're right, I don't, Lauren agreed. But I know what it's like to feel invisible. And Sophie is starting to feel that way with you. The words hung between them. Ethan's expression shifted from defensive to pained. I'm trying, he said quietly. Every day I'm trying to balance everything. I know you are, Lauren's voice softened. But maybe you don't have to do it alone anymore. That's why I'm here, remember? Before Ethan could respond, Sophie burst into the kitchen, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. Daddy? You're home early. She launched herself at him and he caught her, lifting her into his arms. I am, he said, kissing the top of her head. I heard someone made a special request for chicken fingers. Lauren makes them the best, Sophie said loyally. She cuts them into fun shapes. Today they're hearts. Ethan met Lauren's eyes over Sophie's head. A silent thank you passed between them. During dinner, Sophie talked nonstop about her day. She had gotten a gold star on her spelling test. Her friend Brittany had shared cookies at lunch. Her art teacher said her painting of a rainbow was going to be displayed in the hallway. Lauren watched Ethan with his daughter. Watched how his whole face relaxed when Sophie laughed. How he asked follow-up questions and really listened to the answers. This was a man who loved his child deeply. He was just lost in how to balance everything. After Sophie went to bed, Lauren found Ethan in his study. The room was lined with bookshelves and dominated by a large desk covered in papers. He was reviewing something on his laptop, a frown creasing his forehead. "Can I come in?" Lauren asked from the doorway. "Of course." He looked up, closing the laptop. "Is Sophie asleep?" "Out like a light. She wants me to read her the next chapter of her book tomorrow." Lauren sat in one of the leather chairs across from his desk. "I wanted to apologize if I overstepped earlier. About the board meeting." "You didn't," Ethan said. "You were right. I've been using work as an escape. If I'm busy enough, I don't have to think about how much Sophie has lost. How much I've failed her." "You haven't failed her," Lauren said firmly. "She adores you. But she needs more time with you. Real time, not just the hour before bed." "I don't know how to do this without Caroline," Ethan admitted. His wife's name felt heavy in the room. She was the heart of this family. She knew how to make everything feel okay. "I'm just stumbling through." "Then let me help you stumble less," Lauren offered. "Tell me about your schedule. Maybe we can find ways to create more space for Sophie." They spent the next hour going through his calendar. Board meetings that could be moved or attended remotely. Business dinners that could be shortened. A weekend conference that Sophie could attend with him, turning it into a mini vacation. "I can't believe I didn't think of this before," Ethan said, making notes on his tablet. "You were in survival mode," Lauren said. "Sometimes we need someone outside the situation to see the solutions." "Is that what you are? Outside the situation?" Ethan asked, and there was something new in his voice. Something Lauren couldn't quite identify. "I'm part of the family now," she said carefully. "At least, that's what you told me this arrangement would be." "Right. The arrangement." Ethan set down his tablet. "Lauren, can I ask you something personal?" "Okay." "Do you ever think about him? The man who left you?" Lauren was surprised by the question. She considered it honestly. "Less than I thought I would. Mostly I think about how I didn't see it coming. How I missed all the signs that he wasn't really committed." "There were signs." "Looking back?" "Yes." "He never wanted to talk about the future past the wedding. He got tense when I mentioned children. He worked late more and more often in the months before." Lauren shook her head. "I told myself I was imagining things. That he was just stressed about work. But I think he was pulling away long before that Saturday." "His loss," Ethan said simply. "Maybe," Lauren allowed. "But sitting here now, talking to you about your daughter and your schedule, I realized something. I was trying so hard to fit into Brett's life. To be what he needed. I never asked if he was willing to fit into mine." "And what do you need?" Ethan asked. Lauren thought about it. "Purpose. Connection. To feel like what I do matters." "You matter to Sophie," Ethan said. "These 3 weeks she's been happier than I've seen her in 2 years. She talks about you constantly." Lauren did this. Lauren said that. Lauren made funny pancakes. "Bunny pancakes," Lauren corrected with a small smile. "And that was only once. Still, you're making a difference here." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Lauren stood to leave. "Ethan? About the school play. Will you go?" He nodded. "I'll move the meeting. You're coming too, right?" "If you want me to." "I do," he said. "Sophie would want both of us there. Her family." The word family settled around them like a blanket. Strange and new but not unwelcome. As Lauren walked back to her room, she realized something. She hadn't thought about Brett once during dinner. Hadn't felt the ache of rejection that had consumed her those first days. Instead, she had been focused on this new life, these new people who were slowly becoming important to her. Maybe that was how healing happened. Not all at once, but in small moments. A child's laughter. An honest conversation. The gradual building of something real from unexpected circumstances. Lauren fell asleep that night feeling, for the first time since the failed wedding, like she might actually be okay. The following Saturday, Ethan surprised everyone by announcing he was taking the day off. No phone calls, no emails, no work. Just family time. Sophie was ecstatic. "Can we go to the zoo? Please, please, please?" Lauren glanced at Ethan, unsure. They hadn't spent extended time together outside the house yet. Their interactions had been mostly passing moments, brief conversations, the comfortable routine of shared meals. "That sounds perfect," Ethan said, catching Lauren's uncertain look. "If Lauren's interested?" "I love the zoo," Lauren said, and Sophie squealed with delight. They drove to the city zoo, Sophie bouncing in her car seat the entire way. The October day was crisp and clear, the kind of weather that made everything feel fresh and possible. Lauren wore jeans and a comfortable maroon sweater. Ethan had abandoned his usual suits for casual khakis and a navy pullover. "You look different," Sophie observed, studying her father. "Like a regular dad." I am a regular dad, Ethan protested, but he was smiling. The zoo was crowded with weekend visitors. Children ran ahead of tired parents. Couples strolled hand in hand. Sophie grabbed both Lauren's hand and Ethan's hand, swinging between them as they walked. Penguins first, Sophie declared. Then the big cats. Then the monkey house. I have a plan. She's very organized, Ethan said to Lauren over Sophie's head. Gets that from her mother. It was the first time he had mentioned Caroline naturally, without pain tightening his voice. Lauren saw it as progress. At the penguin exhibit, Sophie pressed against the glass, watching the birds dive and swim. They mate for life, she announced. That's what the sign says. They find one partner and stay together forever. That's romantic, Lauren said. Daddy, did you and Mommy mate for life? Sophie asked innocently. Ethan crouched beside his daughter. We did. Your mom was my best friend and my partner. When she died, I thought that was the end of that kind of love for me. But then you married Lauren, Sophie said matter-of-factly. So maybe there are different kinds of forever. The word struck Lauren with unexpected force. This child, with her simple wisdom, had just articulated something profound. Different kinds of forever. Different ways to build a life. They moved through the zoo, stopping at each exhibit. Ethan bought cotton candy and Sophie got more of it on her face than in her mouth. At the petting zoo, Lauren helped Sophie feed goats, laughing when one tried to eat Sophie's shoelace. Watch out, Ethan called, pulling out his phone to take a picture. That goat has very expensive taste in shoelaces. Lauren caught him taking more photos throughout the day. Sophie by the elephant statue. Sophie and Lauren at the bird sanctuary. All three of them reflected in the aquarium glass, Sophie in the middle pointing at a turtle. During lunch at the zoo cafe, Sophie fell asleep at the table, her head resting on her folded arms. The excitement had worn her out. She never naps anymore, Ethan said softly, brushing a curl from her face. She must really be exhausted. Happy exhaustion, Lauren observed. There's a difference. They sat in companionable silence, watching Sophie sleep. Around them, the cafe buzzed with activity, but they existed in their own quiet bubble. Can I ask you something? Ethan said eventually. And you can tell me if it's too personal. Okay. Do you regret it? Marrying me instead of waiting to see what else life might bring. Lauren considered the question carefully. A month ago I would have said I was just surviving. Taking the only option available. But now, no. I don't regret it. No. Sophie needed someone who could be fully present. And I needed a purpose, a place to heal. We're helping each other. That's not something to regret. What about the other stuff? Ethan asked. The things that usually come with marriage. Companionship. Partnership. Affection. Lauren felt her cheeks warm. They hadn't discussed the physical side of their arrangement since that first day. They lived in the same house, shared meals, co-parented Sophie, but maintained a careful distance from anything more intimate. I'm okay with how things are, she said. This feels right. For now. The for now hung between them, full of possibility and uncertainty. Sophie stirred, blinking sleepily. Did I fall asleep? Just for a little bit, Ethan said. Ready to see the rest of the animals? They spent 2 more hours at the zoo. By the time they returned home, all 3 of them were tired in the best way. Sophie went straight to her room to play with the stuffed penguin Ethan had bought her at the gift shop. Lauren started toward her own room, but Ethan stopped her. Thank you, he said. For today. For making it easy. You made it easy too, Lauren replied. You were really present. Sophie noticed. I've been thinking about what you said. About being here, really here. You're right. Work will always be there. But Sophie is only young once. I can't get these years back. That's a good realization. Lauren, Ethan said her name softly. I want you to know something. This arrangement might have started as a practical solution, but you've become important to us. To me. Not just as someone who helps with Sophie. As a person. Lauren's heart skipped. Ethan. I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I just wanted you to know. You're not just the woman I married on paper. You're becoming my friend. And I value that. Friend. The word should have felt safe, comfortable. But Lauren realized, standing in the foyer of this beautiful house with this kind man, that friendship might not be enough forever. She wasn't ready to examine that feeling too closely. Not yet. I value it too, she said simply. That night, Lauren lay in bed replaying the day. Sophie's laughter. Ethan's smile. The feeling of belonging to something, even if that something was unconventional. Her phone buzzed with a text. She almost ignored it, but curiosity won. It was from Brett. I made a mistake. Can we talk? Lauren stared at the message for a long moment. A month ago these words would have meant everything. They would have validated her pain, offered a chance at the future she thought she wanted. Now they just felt empty. She deleted the message without responding. Whatever she and Brett had was over. Her life was here now, with a little girl who called her pretty and a man who was learning to be present. With a home that felt more real every day. Lauren turned off her phone and went to sleep, dreaming not of the past but of the future unfolding before her. November arrived with cooler temperatures and the first hints of holiday decorations appearing in stores. Sophie became obsessed with planning for Thanksgiving, creating elaborate menus and decoration schemes in her notebook. Can we have a real family Thanksgiving? She asked one morning at breakfast. With turkey and pie and everyone together? We can do whatever you want, Ethan said, looking at Lauren. What do you usually do for Thanksgiving? Lauren felt a pang. She had always spent Thanksgiving with her parents before they retired to Arizona. Last year she'd been planning to have it with Brett's family. This year she hadn't thought about it at all. I don't have plans, she said. So yes, we can definitely do a family Thanksgiving here. Sophie threw her arms around Lauren's waist. This is going to be the best Thanksgiving ever. The enthusiasm was infectious. Over the next 2 weeks the house transformed. Sophie and Lauren made paper turkeys and hung them around the kitchen. They created a gratitude tree in the living room, where each of them added leaves with things they were thankful for. Lauren noticed that Ethan's leaves included simple things. Sophie's laughter. Good health. Second chances. Her own leaves evolved as the days passed. At first she wrote generic things, shelter, food, safety. But gradually they became more personal. Sophie's hugs. Morning coffee on the balcony. Unexpected kindness. One evening, while Sophie was at a friend's house for a playdate, Lauren and Ethan found themselves alone in the kitchen. She was preparing dinner, and he had come home early, drawn by the smell of something delicious. What are you making? He asked, peering into the pot on the stove. Vegetable soup, Lauren said. Patricia mentioned it's your favorite. She did. Ethan looked surprised and touched. I haven't had homemade vegetable soup since Caroline died. She used to make it every fall. Lauren froze, suddenly worried she had overstepped. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring up painful memories. No, Ethan said quickly. It's nice. Everything in this house has been in stasis since she died. Same routines, same habits, same careful avoidance of anything that might hurt. But pain isn't all there is. There are good memories too. He pulled out a cutting board and started chopping vegetables without being asked, falling into an easy rhythm beside her. Tell me about her, Lauren said. If you want to. Ethan was quiet for a moment, his knife moving steadily through a carrot. Caroline was light. That's the only way I can describe it. She made everything feel possible. When I was stressed about work, she dragged me out to dance in the kitchen. When Sophie was a baby and we were exhausted, Caroline would make up silly songs that got us all laughing. His voice was thick with emotion but not overwhelmed by it. This was memory now, not fresh grief. She sounds wonderful. She was. But she was also stubborn and impatient and terrible at directions. We got lost every time she drove somewhere new. Ethan smiled at the memory. She'd insist she knew a shortcut, and we'd end up in some random neighborhood with no idea where we were. Lauren found herself smiling too. Ethan, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you feel guilty? About moving forward? His knife stilled. Yes. Every day. Especially when I realize I've had a moment of happiness. I think, how can I laugh when she's gone? How can I enjoy anything when Sophie doesn't have her mother? But you're allowed to live, Lauren said gently. That's not betraying her memory. It's honoring it by making sure Sophie grows up in a home filled with joy, not just sadness. Ethan met her eyes and Lauren saw something shift in his expression. Gratitude maybe. Or recognition. When did you get so wise? He asked. I'm not wise. I'm just someone who understands that life moves forward whether we're ready or not. We can fight it and stay stuck, or we can move with it and find new meaning. They finished preparing dinner together, moving around the kitchen with the ease of people who had done this many times before. When the soup was simmering and the bread was in the oven, they sat at the kitchen island with glasses of wine. I got another text from Brett yesterday, Lauren said, surprising herself by bringing it up. Ethan's expression darkened. What did he want? To apologize. To explain. He's been texting once a week for the past month. Lauren traced the rim of her glass. At first I just deleted them. But yesterday I actually read what he had to say. And? He said leaving me was the biggest mistake of his life. That he panicked about commitment but realizes now what he lost. He wants another chance. Ethan was very still. What did you say? Nothing yet. But I'm going to tell him no. Are you sure? Ethan asked carefully. I mean, he was your plan. Your future. If you want to go back to that, I would understand. We could figure out the divorce, make sure you're taken care of. Lauren looked at him, really looked at him. At the way he held himself with such careful control. At the vulnerability in his eyes that he was trying to hide. Ethan, do you want me to leave? No, he said immediately. Then more softly, no. But I want you to be happy. If that means going back to your old life. It doesn't, Lauren interrupted. That life was never really mine. I was fitting myself into Brett's world, changing to match what he wanted. But here, I'm just me. And somehow that's enough. It's more than enough, Ethan said, his voice rough. Lauren, you've transformed this house. Sophie is thriving. And I. He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. I find myself looking forward to coming home. Not just to see Sophie but to see you. To hear about your day. To sit and talk like this. Lauren's heart was pounding. That sounds like friendship. Maybe it started that way, Ethan agreed. But it's becoming something more. At least for me. The air between them felt charged. Lauren realized she was leaning toward him, drawn by something magnetic and undeniable. Before either could move closer, they heard the front door open and Sophie's voice calling out, "We're home." The moment broke. Ethan stood quickly, creating distance. Lauren busied herself with checking the soup, her hands trembling slightly. Patricia brought Sophie into the kitchen, and the little girl immediately launched into a detailed account of her playdate. But as Lauren listened and responded and served dinner, she was acutely aware of Ethan across the table. Of the way his eyes kept finding hers. Of the unspoken words hanging between them. Something had shifted tonight. The careful boundaries they had maintained were starting to blur. And Lauren wasn't sure if that terrified her or thrilled her. Maybe both. After Sophie went to bed, Lauren stood on her balcony looking out at the grounds. The air was cold and she wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. A soft knock made her turn. Ethan stood in her doorway looking uncertain. "Can I join you?" he asked. Lauren nodded and he stepped onto the balcony beside her. They stood in silence for a moment, watching their breath form clouds in the cold air. "I meant what I said earlier," Ethan finally spoke. "About this becoming more than friendship. I know. But I also want you to know there's no pressure. You've been through a lot. You deserve time to heal, to figure out what you want. I'm not going anywhere. Whatever pace feels right to you is fine with me." Lauren turned to face him. "What if I don't know what pace feels right? What if I'm scared and hopeful and confused all at once?" "Then we figure it out together," Ethan said simply. "No rush. No expectations. Just honest communication and mutual respect." "That sounds healthy and mature," Lauren said with a small smile. "I'm a healthy, mature guy," Ethan replied, and his smile matched hers. They stood close together in the cold, not quite touching but not separate either. And for the first time since her failed wedding, Lauren felt the stirring of something new. Not just healing. Not just friendship. Something deeper. Something real. Something worth nurturing carefully as it grew. Thanksgiving morning arrived bright and cold. The house smelled like cinnamon and roasted turkey. Sophie had been awake since dawn, helping Lauren prepare dishes while Ethan set the table with Caroline's good china, which had been stored away for 2 years. "Mom would be happy we're using these," he'd said, running his fingers over the delicate plates. "She always said nice things should be enjoyed, not hidden away." Lauren had touched his arm gently, and he'd covered her hand with his own, a gesture that had become natural between them lately. They were putting the finishing touches on the table when the doorbell rang. Lauren assumed it was Patricia arriving with the pies she'd offered to make. But when Ethan opened the door, Brett Morrison stood on the doorstep holding a bouquet of roses. Lauren, emerging from the kitchen with Sophie, stopped dead. The flowers in the vase she'd been carrying nearly slipped from her hands. "Brett," she said, her voice flat. "What are you doing here?" Brett looked different. Thinner, tired around the eyes. He wore an expensive coat and held himself with the confidence of someone who expected to be welcomed. "Lauren, please. Just give me 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Ethan moved subtly, positioning himself between Brett and the interior of the house. "I think you should leave." "Who are you?" Brett asked, then his eyes caught the wedding ring on Ethan's hand, the matching one on Lauren's. Understanding dawned on his face. "You got married? To him?" "Yes," Lauren said, finding her voice. She set down the vase and moved to stand beside Ethan. "This is Ethan Cross. My husband." "Lauren, you can't be serious," Brett laughed, but it sounded forced. "Come on. This is crazy. You married some random guy 2 months after our wedding?" "Our wedding that never happened because you abandoned me at the altar," Lauren said sharply. Sophie tugged on Lauren's hand. "Who is that man? Why is he being mean?" "Go to your room, sweetie," Ethan said gently. "We'll call you down when dinner's ready." Sophie looked between the adults uncertainly but obeyed. Once she was gone, Ethan's expression hardened. "You need to leave. Now." "I'm not talking to you," Brett said. "Lauren, please. I made a terrible mistake. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. I miss you. I love you." Those words, which once would have meant everything, now fell flat. Lauren studied the man she'd once planned to marry and felt nothing but mild disinterest. "You don't love me, Brett. You love the idea of me. The version I became to fit into your life." "That's not true." "It is," Lauren said firmly. "I spent 4 years making myself smaller to match your expectations. I changed my job, my friends, my habits. All for someone who couldn't even show up to marry me." "I panicked," Brett said desperately. "Cold feet. It happens. But I've realized what I lost. Please, Lauren. We can start over. I'll make it right." "I don't want you to make it right," Lauren said. "I've moved on. I have a life here. A family. People who value me for who I am, not who they want me to be." "A family?" Brett's voice dripped with skepticism. "You've known this guy for 2 months. That's not a family, Lauren. That's desperation." Ethan took a step forward, his presence commanding. "You should watch what you say about my wife." There was steel in his voice and Brett faltered. But he rallied, turning back to Lauren. "Just answer one question honestly. Do you love him?" The question hung in the air. Lauren felt Ethan tense beside her. They had never said those words to each other, had never defined what was growing between them. But standing here, facing the man who had broken her heart, Lauren realized she knew the answer. "Yes," she said clearly. "I do." She felt Ethan's sharp intake of breath beside her. But she kept her eyes on Brett. "What we have is real. It might have started unusually, but it's grown into something I value more than the fantasy I had with you. So please leave us alone. Stop texting. Stop showing up. Let me live my life." Brett's face flushed red. "You're making a mistake. He's just a rebound. When you come to your senses, don't expect me to be waiting." "I won't," Lauren said simply. After a long moment, Brett turned and walked back to his car. They watched him drive away, the roses still clutched in his hand. When the car disappeared, Lauren felt Ethan's hand on her shoulder. "Did you mean it?" he asked quietly. "What you said about loving me?" Lauren turned to face him. "I think I did. I know we haven't talked about feelings or where this is going. But Brett was right about one thing. This stopped being just an arrangement for me weeks ago." Ethan's expression was unreadable. "Lauren, I need to tell you something. And I need you to know I'm not saying it because of what you just said. I've been feeling this way, I just didn't know how to bring it up." "Okay. I'm falling in love with you," Ethan said. "Maybe I have been since that day in the church when you showed kindness to my daughter despite your own pain. You're patient and warm and genuine. You've brought light back into our lives. Into my life." Lauren felt tears prick her eyes. "Ethan, I know this is fast. I know we're still getting to know each other. But I wanted you to know. What we have isn't obligation anymore. It's choice. Every day I choose this. I choose you." Lauren reached up and touched his face gently. "I choose this too. I choose you." They stood in the open doorway, the cold air swirling around them, and smiled at each other with the giddiness of people discovering something precious. "Can we eat now?" Sophie's voice called from the stairs. "I'm really hungry." They broke apart laughing. Ethan closed the door, shutting out the past and all its complications. "Come on down, sweetheart," Lauren called. "Everything's ready." During dinner, Sophie chattered happily about the food and the decorations and her plans for Christmas, which was still a month away. But between serving dishes and passing rolls, Lauren and Ethan kept catching each other's eyes. Something fundamental had changed today. They had gone from an arrangement built on mutual need to a relationship built on genuine feeling. After dinner, while Sophie played with her new art set in the living room, Lauren and Ethan cleaned up together. The kitchen was warm and steamy from the dishwashing, their hands occasionally brushing as they worked. "So," Ethan said casually, "I love you." Lauren laughed. "So I love you too." "This is good timing," he continued, drying a plate. "I was planning to court you properly first. Take you on dates. Romance you gradually. We're already married, Lauren pointed out. I think we did things backward. True. But maybe we can still have the dating part. The getting to know each other better part. I'd like that. Ethan set down the dish towel and pulled Lauren into his arms. She went willingly, resting her head against his chest. His heart beat steady beneath her ear. Thank you, he murmured into her hair. For choosing us. For staying. For being brave enough to let this become real. Thank you for asking me in the first place, Lauren replied. For seeing me when I felt invisible. For giving me a reason to heal. They stood holding each other in the warm kitchen, while in the next room Sophie sang to herself, and outside the November wind blew cold. But inside this house, everything was warm and right and full of possibility. The past had come knocking today and they had closed the door on it together. Now they could focus on building the future. December arrived with the first snowfall. Sophie pressed her nose against the window, watching the flakes drift down like magic. Can we build a snowman? She asked for the third time that morning. After breakfast, Lauren promised, flipping pancakes. And after you finish your homework. But it's Saturday, Sophie protested. Which is why you only have 2 pages of math instead of 5, Ethan said from behind his newspaper. That's the deal, remember? Sophie sighed dramatically but accepted her fate. The morning routine had become comfortable. Ethan no longer left before dawn on weekends. Lauren no longer felt like a guest in the house. They moved around each other with the practiced ease of a real family. After breakfast and homework they bundled up in coats and scarves. The backyard was transformed into a white wonderland. Sophie immediately started rolling snow into balls while Lauren and Ethan worked on the base of the snowman. Bigger, Sophie instructed. He needs to be really big. They spent 2 hours building what Sophie declared was the best snowman in the world. They gave him a carrot nose, button eyes, and one of Ethan's old scarves. Sophie insisted on making a snow family, so they built a smaller snowman beside the first. That's the mommy, Sophie said. And now we need a baby. Lauren and Ethan exchanged glances. Sophie's casual assumption of family roles wasn't accidental. She had started referring to Lauren as Mom, occasionally, always watching to see if it was okay. A baby snowman it is, Lauren said, helping Sophie roll a small snowball. They were putting the finishing touches on the snow family when Sophie suddenly said, Are you going to have a real baby? Lauren nearly dropped the stick she was holding. Ethan coughed. What? He managed. A baby, Sophie repeated patiently. Like a brother or sister for me. That's what families do, right? Sometimes, Lauren said carefully. But not all families are the same. Some have lots of kids, some have one, some have none. But do you want one? Sophie pressed, looking between them with innocent curiosity. Sophie, that's a very personal question, Ethan said gently. But I want to know, Sophie said. Because if you're going to have a baby, I need time to prepare. I'll need to teach them stuff. Despite the awkwardness, Lauren found herself smiling. Sophie's practical approach to everything was endearing. If we ever decide to have a baby, you'll be the first to know, Lauren promised. So you'll have plenty of time to prepare. Satisfied, Sophie returned to decorating the snow family with pine cones and leaves. Later, after Sophie was inside warming up with hot chocolate, Lauren and Ethan stood together on the back porch. Sorry about that, Ethan said. She's at that age where she notices everything and asks everything. It's okay, Lauren said. It's actually a fair question. We haven't really talked about the future. About what we want this to become long-term. What do you want? Ethan asked. Lauren thought carefully before answering. 2 months ago, I would have said I just wanted to survive. To get through each day. But now, I want more. I want a real marriage. A real partnership. The whole thing. Including kids? Maybe, Lauren said honestly. Someday. When we're ready. If we're ready. But there's no rush. I'm happy with what we have now. Ethan pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her from behind. They stood watching Sophie through the window as she danced around the kitchen with Patricia, showing off her snow-covered mittens. I want that too, Ethan said into Lauren's ear. The real thing. Not the arrangement we started with, but the marriage we're building. With all the normal things. Fights about whose turn it is to do dishes. Disagreements about vacation plans. Maybe kids someday. All of it. Fights about dishes? Lauren teased. How romantic. I'm serious, Ethan turned her to face him. I want the boring stuff and the exciting stuff and everything in between. I want to build a life with you, Lauren. For real. We're already married, Lauren pointed out. Legally, we've been married for 3 months. True. But that was a business arrangement. I'm talking about a real commitment. A vow renewal maybe. Something where we choose each other in front of everyone, not just on paper in an empty courthouse. Lauren's heart swelled. You want to marry me again? I want us to marry each other for the right reasons this time, Ethan corrected. Not because you needed a place to go and I needed help with Sophie. But because we love each other and want to spend our lives together. When? Whenever you want, Ethan said. Next month. Next year. I just want you to know that's where my heart is. You're not temporary. You're not a solution to a problem. You're the person I want beside me for everything that comes next. Lauren kissed him then, standing on the cold porch with snow melting on their coats. It was their first real kiss, sweet and gentle and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Sophie was at the window making exaggerated kissy faces at them. They laughed and Ethan waved her away playfully. I love you, Lauren said. I love you too. They went inside to the warmth, to Sophie's chatter and Patricia's knowing smile and the smell of cinnamon from the cookies baking in the oven. This was home now. Not just the house but the people in it. The life they were creating together, one ordinary, extraordinary day at a time. That evening, after Sophie was asleep, Lauren and Ethan sat in the library going through photo albums. Caroline smiled at them from pictures years old, frozen in moments of joy. She would like you, Ethan said, touching one photo of Caroline laughing at something off camera. She always said I needed someone who could call me on my nonsense. Someone who wouldn't let me hide in work when things got hard. She sounds like she was a wise woman. She was. And I think she'd be happy that Sophie has you. That we found a way forward without forgetting her. Lauren studied the photos. Do you think Sophie remembers her well? Some. She has memories but they're getting hazier. She was only 3 when Caroline died. That's why photos are important. Stories are important. I want Sophie to know her mother, even as she grows to love you. I hope she does, Lauren said. Love me, I mean. Not just accept me or get used to me. Really love me. She already does, Ethan assured her. She calls you mom when she thinks we're not listening. She tells her friends at school about you. You're not replacing Caroline in her mind. You're creating your own space in her heart. They sat in comfortable silence, looking through memories of a life that had been and thinking about the life that was becoming. Later, when Lauren was getting ready for bed, she found a text from an unknown number. Her finger hovered over delete, but curiosity won. It was from Brett's mother. You've made a fool of yourself marrying that man so fast. Everyone is talking. You'll come running back when reality sets in. Lauren blocked the number without responding. Their opinions didn't matter anymore. She had chosen her path forward and it led here. To this house, this family, this love that had grown from unexpected soil. She climbed into bed and opened her journal, something she'd started keeping again after moving in. Today Sophie asked if we're going to have a baby, she wrote. And I realized that someday I want that. I want to build a family with Ethan. To give Sophie siblings. To create a life full of love and laughter and ordinary magic. I never thought I'd be here 3 months ago. Standing on that altar, humiliated and broken, I couldn't see past the pain. But now I understand that sometimes the end of one story is just the beginning of a better one. She closed the journal and turned off the light, falling asleep with a smile on her face and hope in her heart. Christmas decorations filled every corner of the house. Sophie had insisted on 3 trees. One in the living room, one in her bedroom, and one in the foyer. The place sparkled with lights and tinsel and the kind of festive chaos that came with a 6-year-old in charge of decorating. Lauren stood on a ladder hanging ornaments on the living room tree while Ethan handed them up to her. Sophie directed from the couch, wrapped in a blanket because she'd caught a cold. The angel needs to be higher, Sophie instructed, her voice stuffed up. And more to the left. Your daughter is very particular, Lauren said to Ethan, adjusting the angel for the 3rd time. Gets that from you? Ethan teased. I've only been here 3 months. You can't blame me for that. Watch me. They bantered back and forth while Sophie giggled from her blanket nest. The scene felt so normal, so right, that Lauren had to remind herself this wasn't how they'd started. Later, after Sophie dozed off on the couch, Lauren and Ethan sat beside the tree with mugs of coffee. The lights twinkled in the early evening darkness. I've been thinking about the vow renewal, Ethan said. And I want to talk to you about timing. Okay. What about Valentine's Day? It's a few months away, which gives us time to plan properly. But not so far that we're waiting forever. Lauren considered it. That's about 5 months from our first wedding. People might think it's strange. Let them think whatever they want, Ethan said. This isn't about them. It's about us making a public commitment based on love, not convenience. Valentine's Day, Lauren said, testing the words. A real wedding with flowers and guests and vows we write ourselves. Exactly. And this time, no chance of a runaway groom. Lauren laughed. You better not. I'm not sure my heart could take that twice. Never, Ethan promised. You're stuck with me now. Sophie stirred on the couch, blinking sleepily. She looked at her parents sitting together by the tree and smiled. Daddy, she said, her voice rough. You should tell Lauren you love her. I tell her that every day, sweetheart. But really tell her, Sophie insisted. Like in the movies? With the words and everything. Ethan looked at Lauren and something passed between them. An understanding. A shared amusement at being coached in romance by a 6-year-old. Sophie's right, Ethan said, turning to face Lauren fully. I haven't done this properly. I've said I love you, but I haven't told you why. Ethan, you don't have to. I want to, he interrupted gently. He took her hands in his. Lauren, I love you because you're kind without being weak. Because you walked into a broken family and helped put us back together, piece by piece. Because you make Sophie laugh and you challenge me to be better and you've turned this house into a home again. Lauren felt tears prick her eyes. I love you because you're brave, Ethan continued. You could have stayed in that hurt after Brett left you. You could have closed yourself off. But instead you took a risk on us. You opened your heart even when it was still healing. Daddy's really good at this, Sophie observed. Shoo, Lauren said, but she was smiling through her tears. I love you because when I look at you I see my future, Ethan finished. Not the future I planned once, but something better. Something real and solid and full of possibility. You're my partner, my friend, and the love of my life. And I promise to spend every day proving that you made the right choice when you said yes to marrying me. That was beautiful, Sophie sighed from the couch. Lauren wiped her eyes. It was pretty good. Just pretty good? Ethan mock protested. Okay, it was perfect. Lauren leaned forward and kissed him softly. And I love you for about 1,000 reasons too. But mostly because you saw me when I felt invisible. Because you gave me a family when I'd lost everything. Because you make me feel valued and safe and excited about tomorrow. This is so romantic, Sophie said. Can you guys get married again? Like soon? Actually, Ethan said, we were talking about having a vow renewal on Valentine's Day. What do you think? Sophie sat up, her cold momentarily forgotten. Really? Can I be in it? Can I wear a pretty dress? Can we have cake? Yes to all of that, Lauren promised. In fact, we'll need your help planning it. I'm going to be the best helper, Sophie declared. Then she yawned. But maybe I'll start tomorrow. I'm really tired. Ethan scooped her up, blanket and all. Let's get you to bed, kiddo. Lauren followed them upstairs, watching Ethan tuck Sophie in with practiced tenderness. He kissed her forehead and smoothed her curls. Love you, Daddy, Sophie murmured. Love you too, baby. Then Sophie looked at Lauren. Love you, Mom. It was the first time she'd said it directly, not just as an aside or a slip. The word hung in the air, precious and intentional. Lauren's voice caught. I love you too, sweetheart. After Sophie's door was closed, Lauren stood in the hallway struggling to compose herself. Ethan wrapped his arms around her from behind. You okay? More than okay, Lauren managed. She called me Mom. On purpose. She's been wanting to for weeks. I think she was just waiting for the right moment. They walked to Lauren's room together, something that had become routine. They would talk for hours some nights, sitting on her balcony or curled up on the couch in her sitting area. When did this become real for you? Lauren asked as they settled on the couch. When did it stop being an arrangement and start being something more? Ethan thought about it. The day we went to the zoo. When Sophie fell asleep at lunch and you said you didn't regret marrying me. I realized I wanted you to mean that. Not just be grateful or making the best of a situation. I wanted you to genuinely want to be here. And for me, Lauren said, it was the night you talked about Caroline. When you shared those memories and let me into that part of your life. That's when I understood this was becoming real. We've built something good here, Ethan said. Something neither of us planned but both of us needed. The best things are unplanned, Lauren replied. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the snow fall outside the window. The house was quiet except for the hum of the heater and the distant sound of Patricia closing up the kitchen. February 14th, Ethan said. Mark your calendar, Mrs. Cross. We're getting married. Again. I'll be there, Lauren promised. This time in red. Red. I'm done with white wedding dresses. Time for something that represents who I actually am. Ethan kissed her temple. I can't wait to see it. Later, alone in her room, Lauren lay in bed thinking about the journey from that awful day in the church to this moment. 5 months ago, she had been standing at an altar, abandoned and heartbroken. Now she was planning another wedding, but this time with a man who loved her, a daughter who called her mom, and a future that felt bright with possibility. She thought about Brett sometimes, but only in abstract terms. He was part of her past, a chapter that had closed. What she had now was so much better than what she'd lost. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Dinner next week? I want to hear all about the vow renewal. Lauren typed back, absolutely. And Rachel? Thank you for bringing Ethan to my apartment that day. For pushing me to take a chance. The response was immediate. Best decision you ever made. You're glowing, Lauren. Actually glowing. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Lauren smiled and set down her phone. She was glowing because she was happy. Genuinely, deeply, surprisingly happy. The life she had now wasn't the one she'd planned. But it was better than anything she could have imagined. And in February she would stand up in front of everyone and choose it. Choose this family, this love, this unexpected blessing that had grown from the ashes of her worst day. She couldn't wait. Valentine's Day dawned clear and cold. Lauren woke early, her heart racing with excited nerves. Today wasn't just any wedding. It was a celebration of everything they'd built together over the past 5 months. Sophie bounded into her room at 7 a.m., already wearing her flower girl dress. It was deep purple with sparkles and she twirled to show it off. Look, I'm so fancy. You're beautiful, Lauren said, pulling her daughter into a hug. The possessive her daughter came naturally now. Sophie was hers in every way that mattered. Are you nervous? Sophie asked, climbing onto the bed. A little. Good nervous though. Daddy's really nervous, Sophie confided. He burned his toast this morning. Twice. Lauren laughed, imagining Ethan fumbling around the kitchen. They'd spent last night apart, following the tradition of not seeing each other before the wedding. It had felt silly given they'd been married for 5 months already, but also sweet. Rachel arrived at 9 with a team of stylists. She hugged Lauren tightly. Ready for wedding number 2? So ready. Lauren's dress was stunning. Red silk that draped elegantly with a fitted bodice and flowing skirt. Nothing like the ivory gown she'd worn before. This dress was bold and confident, representing exactly who she'd become. The ceremony was being held in the conservatory on the estate. Ethan had transformed the glass-walled room into a winter garden. White flowers, soft lighting, and heated floors to keep everyone comfortable despite the cold outside. By 1 p.m., guests were arriving. Patricia and her family. People from Ethan's company. Rachel and a few of Lauren's former colleagues who had stayed in touch. Sophie's teacher and some friends from school. About 50 people total, each one genuinely happy for the couple. Lauren stood in the library waiting for her cue. Her father had flown in from Arizona to walk her down the aisle again, and he stood beside her looking proud. This is the right one, he said. I can tell. How? Because you're not trying to be someone else. You're just you. And he loves that version. Music began playing. Sophie went first, scattering rose petals and beaming at everyone. Then Rachel as the maid of honor. Then it was Lauren's turn. She walked into the conservatory and found Ethan waiting at the front, looking impossibly handsome in a dark suit with a red tie that matched her dress. But it was his expression that made her breath catch. He looked at her like she was the only person in the world. Lauren walked down the aisle slowly, taking in the moment. The flowers. The friends. The love evident in every detail. This time she wasn't walking toward duty or obligation. She was walking toward partnership and joy. When she reached Ethan, he took her hands and whispered, "You're stunning. You're not so bad yourself." The officiant smiled at them. We're gathered here today to celebrate the renewal of vows between Ethan and Lauren. What makes today special is that when they first married, they barely knew each other. They married out of necessity and hope. But over these past months they've built something real. Something lasting. Today they choose each other again not because they have to, but because they want to. Ethan went first with his vows. Lauren, 5 months ago I asked you to marry me because I thought you could help my daughter. I didn't expect you to help me too. You've made me laugh again. You've reminded me how to be present. You've shown me that moving forward doesn't mean forgetting the past, it means honoring it while building something new. I choose you today and every day. You're my partner, my love, and my best friend. Lauren's voice shook slightly as she began her vows. Ethan, when you found me at my lowest point, you saw potential instead of brokenness. You gave me a home, but more importantly, you gave me a family. You've been patient while I healed. You've been kind even when I was scared. And you've loved me in a way that makes me want to be better. I choose you today and always. Thank you for taking a chance on us." They exchanged new rings, matching bands engraved with today's date. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife, again and always, and Ethan kissed Lauren to applause and cheers. Sophie rushed up to hug them both. "We're a real family now." "We were always a real family," Lauren said, lifting Sophie into her arms. "But yes, now it's official." The reception filled the main house. Dinner was served in the dining room with toasts from Rachel and from Ethan's business partner, Michael, who had become a friend to them both. "I've known Ethan for 15 years, Michael said. And I've never seen him as happy as he's been these past few months. Lauren, you've brought light back into his life." To Ethan and Lauren. Sophie insisted on making a toast too. Standing on her chair, she raised her juice cup. "I'm happy because I have the best mommy and daddy. And also because we're having cake soon." Everyone laughed, and Ethan lifted his daughter down with a kiss to her head. During their first dance, Lauren and Ethan swayed to a slow song while guests watched. "Mrs. Cross," Ethan murmured. "For the second time. It feels different this time. Because it is different. This time it's real." "It was always real," Lauren corrected. "We just didn't know it yet." Later in the evening, Lauren found herself on the terrace watching the stars. The February cold bit at her bare shoulders, but she didn't mind. She heard footsteps and turned to find Sophie wrapped in a blanket. "What are you doing out here?" Lauren asked. "Looking for you. Everyone's dancing inside. I just needed a minute to think." "What are you thinking about?" Lauren pulled Sophie into her lap, wrapping the blanket around both of them. "I'm thinking about how different my life is now compared to 5 months ago." "Is it better?" "So much better. 5 months ago I thought my life was over. I thought I'd never be happy again. But then I met you and your daddy and everything changed." "I'm glad you married us," Sophie said matter-of-factly. "You're the best mom." Lauren's eyes filled with tears. "And you're the best daughter. Thank you for hugging me that day in the church. You looked sad. I wanted to help." "You did help. More than you know." They sat together in the cold, looking at the stars. Inside, music played and people celebrated. But out here it was just Lauren and Sophie, mother and daughter, belonging to each other completely. When they returned inside, Ethan was waiting. He'd been looking for them, worry on his face until he saw them together. "There you are." "Just having a moment," Lauren explained. He pulled them both into his arms, and they stood in a family embrace while the party continued around them. At the end of the night, after guests had left and Sophie was asleep upstairs, Lauren and Ethan stood in the conservatory where they'd exchanged vows hours earlier. "Best day of my life," Ethan said. "The first wedding or the second?" "This one. Definitely this one." He kissed her softly. "The first was the beginning. This was the confirmation. The choice to keep choosing each other. Always," Lauren promised. They walked upstairs together, passing Sophie's room where they peeked in to check on her. She was sprawled across her bed, still in her flower girl dress, one hand clutching her stuffed rabbit. "We should probably change her into pajamas," Lauren whispered. "Let her sleep," Ethan decided. She was so happy today. Let her dream in her fancy dress. In their room, because it was officially their room now, Lauren had moved in completely. They prepared for bed in comfortable silence. This was their life now. Not the arrangement they'd started with, but the marriage they'd built. "I have something for you," Ethan said, pulling out a small wrapped box. A wedding gift. Inside was a locket. When Lauren opened it, she found 3 pictures. One of Ethan, one of Sophie, and one of herself. "For your family," Ethan explained. "The people who love you. The people who will always love you." Lauren fastened it around her neck, the locket warm against her skin. "Thank you. For everything. For seeing me when I felt invisible. For giving me a home. For loving me." "Loving you is easy," Ethan said. "You made it easy by being exactly who you are." They fell asleep wrapped around each other, the locket between them, a symbol of the family they'd become. Outside, snow began to fall again, blanketing the estate in white. Inside, the house was warm and filled with love. Lauren had walked into a church 5 months ago expecting one kind of forever and had it ripped away. But she'd found a different forever. A better one. A real one. She'd found a daughter who called her mom. A man who loved her genuinely. A home that felt like safety and joy combined. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best things. Sometimes heartbreak opens doors to happiness we never knew existed. Sometimes a little girl in a red dress sees exactly what you need and brings it into your life. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get a second chance at forever. Lauren had taken that chance. And she'd found everything.